SKOL Vikings, let's win this game.
All right, Vikings Nation, pause the tape for a heartbeat. What's bubbling up right now is like tossing a lit match into a room full of gas. The chatter is swirling about who's actually steering this offense, and there are quiet moves happening that could flip the whole table. A young guy's getting stared down under a spotlight. Veteran voices in the locker room are cranking up the volume, and hovering over all of it is a scenario that rattles everyone who lives and breathes Vikings football, drenched in purple and gold. This isn't fluff talk today, and that last piece, yeah, that one lands like a punch you didn't see coming. Before we tear into all of it, do me a favor and tap that thumbs up. And don't ghost us at the end, jump into the comments. This thing runs on your takes. So let's dive in. Another wave of inside intel just surfaced around Minnesota's quarterback maze. And this isn't beach season rumor mill stuff. This speaks directly to how serious the team is about shielding the J.J. McCarthy plan, or possibly flipping the script altogether. Diana Rossini from The Athletic put 3 familiar names back under the microscope, and she shut one door hard. Joe Burrow is not parachuting in to save the day. The word out of Cincinnati is crystal clear. Stop it before it starts. Believe me, I get why fans let their minds wander. I do it too. But franchises clutch stars like that like a life raft in a storm. So if you rolled out of bed thinking maybe, it's time to put that thought back in the freezer. Now the real meat of this kicks in. With Burrow erased, the lens swings to a veteran who can take punishment and still command the room. Enter Mac Jones. Rossini says San Francisco isn't exactly racing to ship him out. They like Brock Purdy backed up by someone who can actually steer the ship if needed. And yeah, Mac Jones isn't flawless, but he's proven he can keep an offense humming, hit his spots, and not melt when the crowd's roaring like a jet engine. The snag is simple. If the Niners slam that door shut, the asking price skyrockets, and Minnesota can't toss draft picks around like loose change at a carnival. Then comes the name that pokes an old bruise while also whispering, at least this is familiar. Kirk Cousins. Rossini said she's keeping an eye on what Atlanta does next. That could mean a cut loose. It could mean trade talks heating up. She also cited league folks who see Cousins as a candidate because of his past with Kevin O'Connell. That's not a handshake deal, but it is smoke curling up. Speaking as someone who's ridden every emotional roller coaster in the stands, the thought of Cousins returning tastes like 2 things at once: warm comfort and lingering scars. He brings steadiness, no doubt, but he's also left fans chewing their nails down to the bone late in seasons. Here's the key twist, though. A comeback wouldn't crown him king. It would mean competition and a steady floor if McCarthy turns into another question mark. Through that lens, the reasoning clicks. What jumps out to me in all this is pretty clear. The Vikings are hunting for a real fallback plan, not a buddy backup. Someone who can shove McCarthy forward or keep the engine running if things wobble. That screams urgency. This staff and this roster know the purple and gold window is like ice in the sun. It doesn't last. Sound off below. Between Mac Jones and Kirk Cousins, who actually fits this locker room right now, because that call reshapes the whole offseason. And brace yourself, the next segment is heavier. It hits McCarthy's future in a way nobody wanted. Just when you think the quarterback soap opera has run out of episodes, another one drops. And this feels like the fork in the road, because buried under all the noise isn't just who's starting, it's how long does the staff wait for J.J. McCarthy to cook? And suddenly Kirk Cousins storms back into the picture with real gravity. This isn't sentimental. This is survival mode. Around the league, eyes see Minnesota shopping for insurance. McCarthy has already racked up too many injuries for someone penciled in as the future. He appeared in only 10 games in 2025. When he did play, it was a roller coaster. That alone puts a knot in every fan's stomach. Rossini talked about this Saturday, and she didn't dance around it. Atlanta could pivot. Maybe they explore a trade. Maybe they hit a point where Cousins is released. He wants to start again somewhere, but the Falcons also need a dependable option. Michael Penix Jr. is back under the microscope. A third ACL surgery is no joke. It makes your shoulders tense just thinking about it. There's another wrinkle here, too. Kevin Stefanski is now running the show in Atlanta, and he's worked with Cousins before in Minnesota. That matters more than people admit. Coaches gravitate to quarterbacks they trust. Their prep, their command, their calm under fire. And whatever your feelings, Cousins has always carried himself like a pro there. From Minnesota's angle, the math is straightforward. If Cousins walks in, he's the plug-and-play option. And that instantly shifts the locker room climate. Nobody signs a veteran like that to wave a towel on Sundays. The message would be loud without being spoken. McCarthy has to prove it. Some fans cheer that. Others worry it could crack the kid's confidence. And floating above all this is a painful echo. Sam Darnold. Yeah, I know. He's gone. He landed with the Seahawks. and now he's marching toward a Super Bowl. Meanwhile, Minnesota watched the offense sputter and the year slip through their fingers. Toss in the firing of Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, and you see why the front office doesn't want another blind leap. So when I size up the Cousins angle, I don't see a rewind. I see a team refusing to stroll into 2026 without a parachute. This roster is loaded. The window won't wait. Justin Jefferson, the defense, the whole crew, they're tired of almost. If Atlanta opens the door, Minnesota has to weigh the bill. Free agency is one thing. Shipping picks is another. Fans are already crunching numbers in their heads. I know I am. Stick with me, because the next piece is even more sensitive. There are credible voices saying McCarthy's future might truly be unsettled, and that flips the whole board. Now we're stepping into the awkward part of the room, because this isn't about adding support anymore. It's about whether the page turns sooner than anyone planned. And when league insiders start murmuring like this, you can feel the air change. After Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah was shown the door, Minnesota's mindset stiffened. Total audit, no sacred cows. And in that environment, one phrase sent a shiver through the fan base. All bets are off. Those words came from Kevin Seifert of ESPN, and he didn't toss them out casually. He aimed them squarely at the J.J. McCarthy situation. The reality is harsh. McCarthy's early career has been bumpy. A rookie-year injury, more physical setbacks in 2025. Just 10 games played. When he did suit up, the tape wasn't kind. Efficiency lagged. Mistakes piled up. The offense bogged down when it mattered most. The year unraveled, and the playoff ticket vanished with it. That all weighs heavy when a team thinks it's built to contend right now. Here's the hard truth to swallow. McCarthy still carries trade value. Not as a miracle worker, but as a roll of the dice. He was drafted high. He's young. He's logged only 10 NFL starts. In a year where the upcoming quarterback class looks thin, there's always a team willing to gamble. That cracks open trade chatter. A few spots keep popping up. Cleveland is one. Early buzz they're never turned into trust. Arizona is another, a franchise that feels like it's wiping the slate clean. And then there's Pittsburgh, a team that spent years hunting for long-term answers under center. In every case, the pitch would be identical. Competition, not promises. Exactly what Minnesota itself is weighing. What rattles people isn't just the idea of a trade, it's what it admits. That the original blueprint didn't work. That's a tough pill, especially after pouring so much draft capital and public faith into a plan. But clinging too long has a price too. We've seen that movie before. Purple and gold fans are split down the middle. Some say it's way too soon. Give the kid room. Others say the clock doesn't stop. Both sides make sense. Nobody wants to torch the future. Nobody wants to squander the present. This kind of intel doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from people plugged in, feeling the locker room pulse, not just watching the scoreboard. So I'm asking you straight, if a legit offer landed today, do you trade McCarthy or give him one more season? Drop it below, because that call reshapes everything, and stay sharp. The next topic pulls in the biggest name on offense, public pressure, and a message that wasn't exactly whispered. Sometimes a locker room doesn't need to yell to make noise. When your top weapon drops a pointed comment, even softly, you feel it thud. It presses down on the quarterback, it presses on the coaches, and it settles right on the shoulders of every fan in purple and gold. Amid all this future of the offense chatter, Justin Jefferson popped up on First Things First and said something that set off warning lights. In plain terms, he said being in the debate for best receiver on earth depends on who's throwing him the football. And when you don't have elite quarterback play all year, the climb gets steeper. Was it a direct jab? He didn't say a name right away, but everyone knew the shadow fell on J.J. McCarthy and the mess of 2025. And honestly, I get Jefferson's angle. The man draws coverage like a magnet pulls nails every Sunday. Of course, he wants the ball, but it also squeezes McCarthy because it becomes a public conversation, and the NFL thrives on that spark. Suddenly it morphs into, can this quarterback actually feed the team's crown jewel? That's rough. It's that heavy exhale you do leaning on a bar. At the same time, Jefferson didn't dim his confidence. He said nobody can guard him one-on-one, and I'm nodding right along. But his words about a young quarterback still figuring it out felt like a challenge, not a slap. A challenge from someone starving to win now. Then the threads tie together again. Aaron Jones Sr. popped up in interviews with a calmer tone. He talked about process, about young teams learning by taking punches. He said the group stayed tight, believed, and found rhythm too late. He even circled the Chicago game as the missed hinge point. I respect that. It shows a beating heart in the locker room. But Jones also dropped another line that reopened old scars everywhere. Asked about Sam Darnold, he said something along the lines of, "We're not the GMS." But he hinted that when a quarterback wants to stay and the room backs him, you try to make it work. And there it is, another what-if jab. You can't fault fans for replaying it, I do the same. At the core, this whole stretch shows two forces tugging the team. Jefferson pushing for elite standards, leadership trying to shield the culture and support McCarthy's growth. When those clash, the pressure cooker starts to hiss, and that sets the stage for what's next. Because now, a legendary vet gets tossed into the mix. And Aaron Jones Sr. didn't mince words about it. That's when things really start to spiral. Buckle up because this one feels like a grenade rolling across the locker room floor. Super Bowl week turned into confession time, and Vikings players are fielding questions fans can't stop tossing. Who's calling the shots in 2026? And if it's a different name, the shockwaves are massive. On Nightcap, Aaron Jones Sr. didn't hesitate when Aaron Rodgers came up. No tiptoeing. He said he'd like him in Minnesota. He talked about leadership, expectations, accountability, the kind of quarterback who storms in and rewires daily habits. Miss the playbook, miss the field. You can already picture that rattling cages. Some players thrive under that demand. Others crack. That's football. Here's where fans in purple and gold hit the crossroads. Rodgers is iconic, but he's also in his 40s. He still showed plenty in 2025. Can't argue that. The real dilemma is whether Minnesota is ready to hand the wheel to a veteran for a year and squeeze J.J. McCarthy even tighter. You can't pretend that wouldn't mess with a young quarterback's mind. And then there's Justin Jefferson. He was asked too on radio, and his response carried that "I'm dealing with reality" tone. He basically said all he can do is work with what's in front of him. And right now, that's McCarthy. Jefferson added that his job is to bond with J.J., train together, build chemistry, and make sure 2025 never repeats. It sounds supportive, but it also reads like, until something changes. You hear the undertone. He doesn't want to stir drama, but he's not going to fake hype either. What cranks the heat even higher is that this isn't just fan chatter. National voices like Leisure Doozable have said the Vikings should absolutely pitch Rodgers on one more ride. The logic is clean. The roster is stacked. The defense can hold its own. What was missing was steadiness at quarterback. When you stare at the current window, you get why that idea sticks. Plain and simple, this talk doesn't exist if the team felt good about what it saw from McCarthy. The speculation grows because 2025 left bruises, and because the pressure on Kevin O'Connell, after all the front office upheaval, feels heavier than ever. At the end of the day, this isn't really about whether Rodgers shows up. It's about identity, about how desperate the Vikings are to win now, and about what toll they're willing to pay. That's where all these threads knot together, because the quarterback choice touches every nerve on this team. I'm going to say it straight. It feels like the Vikings are staring down two roads that both hurt. One is trusting J.J. McCarthy's growth and living with the risk. The other is yanking the cord and bringing in a veteran who demands everything right now, the way this roster might require. Stack that next to what Diana Rossini laid out, and the picture sharpens. Joe Burrow isn't walking through that door. Mac Jones looks pricey and messy, and Kirk Cousins drifts back into view like a shadow you recognize. Then Justin Jefferson speaks, and you feel the squeeze without him shouting. He wants touches. He wants elite standards. Aaron Jones Sr. tries to keep the house together, but still admits quarterback calls ripple everywhere. And when Jones himself floats Aaron Rodgers in Minnesota, that's the match strike. Because that's not just a move, it's a full-on identity swap. I'll plant a flag here. If the Vikings botch this quarterback decision, 2026 turns into a season of second-guessing. This roster doesn't deserve that. Neither do the fans wrapped in purple and gold. So I'm tossing it back to you. Do you want a veteran pushing for wins immediately? Or do you ride with McCarthy and see the project through? Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go!